You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
And welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your host, and I have a fantastic guest, one who has a reputation of being high energy and does not hold back on anything. His name is Rey Hernandez, and we call him Rey Hernandez. And hold on just for a minute, and we'll get to him. Just as a friendly reminder, there are different ways to listen to Paranormal Now. You can listen to Live 365. Just go to Inception Radio Network on Live 65. Stitcher Radio, Nobex Radio, TuneIn, iTunes Radio, Streama, Shoutcast, Winamp, WinMedia Player, and QuickTime. And of course, you can always listen to replays on the Roku channel. And if you are listening to the Inception Radio Network, it's 24/7 live broadcast. You can always call from a landline or your cell phone if your computer is not working. And that number is 888-919-2355. And you can always access the Inception Radio Network. Also, we have our smartphone app, which you can download for your phone, and there's chat and other aspects to it that are really interesting and fun. It's very interactive. Okay, so coming up to our guest, Mr. Rey Hernandez. Rey is one of the 4 co-founders of F.R.E.E., the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. The other 3 co-founders are the late Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Rudy Schild, an emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University, and Australian experiencer research Mary Rodwell. The executive director of F.R.E.E. is Dr. Rudy Schild. Rey and his entire family have had conscious physical contact, according to Rey, with non-human intelligence in their family home. All of the family members have also had various contact with large UFOs, one time with a football stadium-sized craft that was at a distance of only 30 feet from Rey, his daughter, and 3 adult witnesses, which hovered in silence over them for more than 45 minutes. His family has also had numerous paranormal experiences. All of these contact experiences began in March of 2012. Before these experiences, Rey was ignorant of UFOs, ET contact, and the paranormal, and he was an atheist and material rationalist, but is now a deeply spiritual person that has been completely transformed by his experiences. It's funny that that's in Rey's bio, because I do often have the sense that people who are interested in the paranormal, including UFOs, even if you believe in UFOs as being strictly nuts and bolts aliens visiting us from another place, there's a spiritual component to all of these mysteries that I think those of us who are interested in can't deny exists. So, Rey, welcome to Paranormal Now.
Thank you, Alan. One additional item that's also in my bio is that I attended the University of California, Berkeley for a PhD in urban planning. I'm in what is considered ABD, all but dissertation. I had a 3.8 GPA at UC Berkeley for my PhD, and I would have been an academic professor at a major university now for more than 20 years if it wasn't for my ex-wife. Unfortunately, she had an aneurysm while I was writing my dissertation. This was back in 1988, and I was forced to quit my writing my dissertation and take 2 full-time jobs because we had 2 little children at that time. And before then, I was in a master's program at Cornell University, again, a straight A student. And before that, at Rutgers College, and I was an honor student there as well. So I'm coming at this from the mindset of an academic. I also taught at two different universities for 6 years, at the New School for Social Research and at the City University of New York. And now I'm currently a tax attorney with the U.S. Federal government. So that's my academic background.
Yeah, it's quite the background. I actually was going to ask you, because you speak of spirituality and having changed from an atheist, and I was going to ask you if you take your background, an academic background, and you apply it to your research into the UFO phenomena, how does that translate to a spiritual transformation, or are those two things unrelated?
No, they're totally related. We asked over 70 questions in our surveys, and later on I'll go into those details. It wasn't me. It's a team of 7 PhD retired academic professors and 5 lay investigators. We developed this comprehensive multi-phase academic research study. And I can go into those details later on. One of the series of questions that we asked was on the topic of transformation. How have these individuals been transformed from their initial experience until the present day? And we asked a series of questions related to spirituality, spiritual transformation, on top of all different other topics of aspects of the transformation phenomenon. And what we found out was that approximately 80% of the individuals had a transformation in their sense of spirituality. For example, individuals that were atheists or agnostic became very spiritual. People that were religious became very spiritual. People that were slightly spiritual became deeply spiritual. So it's approximately 80% of these individuals noted that change towards spirituality. So it's definitely very much part of this phenomenon.
Indeed. And you also wrote a book, or did you co-write Beyond UFOs, The Science of Contact with Non-Human Intelligence?
Well, that book is due to be published in April of 2018, and that's a book that's being steered and guided by our retired academic professors. And later on, I could go into who these individuals are, and we've also invited 12 different authors to write chapters on very specific topic areas on the findings of our research study. For example, this is just an example of these many different topic areas. What we discovered was that approximately 40% of the individuals that answered the surveys, the people that actually answered that question, it was 50%. This is over 1,000 individuals, stated that they have had a medical healing by non-human intelligence. Okay, huge numbers. And in my household, that was the very first experience we had in my house. The very first experience occurred in our house, and it was a medical healing of our dog, who we were going to be euthanizing that later on that afternoon. And this energy being appeared at 6 o'clock in the morning. I could give you the details later on, but basically knocked me out for 45 minutes. My wife disappeared right in front of me with the dog. And then voila, 45 minutes later, a dog that had been totally paralyzed, that we were going to be euthanizing later that afternoon, was completely healed and was running around like a teenager. So
I'm sorry. You said your wife disappeared.
Well, I would have to tell you the whole story in detail. But basically, my wife had been praying all night. The night before, our dog became paralyzed, totally paralyzed. She's a Catholic, born and raised in Mexico, was praying all night for a miracle. At 6 o'clock in the morning, this energy being, and it was shaped sort of like a rectangle, floating 4 feet off the ground, roughly 2.5 feet wide by 1.5 feet in height, but it didn't have any external edges because it was pure energy, multicolored, semi-translucent, appeared in the living room. And then while I was seeing it, my wife was not there anymore with the dog. And then I was put to sleep for 45 minutes. When I woke up 45 minutes later, my wife was now in the middle of the living room, like she was in a Pentecostal church, saying, hallelujah, hallelujah, the angels cured her. Okay? And the dog was running around, totally cured. So that's what happened. And now that experience that I just told you, we have had more than 1,000 individuals that have checked off on the box. Yes, I was medically healed by non-human intelligence. And in phase three is written responses to 70 open-ended questions. There we had almost 300 individuals to give us the details of their medical healings. And I could give you a couple of these individuals that have gone public later on, but it's a very, very common occurrence. It's just it's not widely publicized. So the two individuals that are writing that chapter for a book, both of them are well known within this field. One individual is a retired medical doctor, an emergency room physician. His name is Dr. Joseph Burks. And what better person to write a chapter on medical healings than a retired emergency room physician who ran an emergency room in Los Angeles. The other person that's writing this book, his name is Preston Dennett. He has written more than 15 books on UFO-related topic areas. And one of the books he wrote 15 years ago titled UFO Healings. And there he documented over 200 cases of individuals that have been medically healed by non-human intelligence. So these are going to be the two authors that are going to be getting the data from our research study and then writing up a chapter on healings, medical healings, but it's based off of the data. So that's just one little example of the invited guests, how they're going to be extracting the data from our research study and writing chapters on that particular thematic topic area. So
that's very interesting. Yeah, because I know that I know Dr. Burks personally. He and I know each other pretty well, actually, because of Epic Voyages Radio on the Inception Radio Network. He and I have worked together, and I knew that he was writing a book, but I didn't realize that this was the same book that you're working on.
Well, he's not writing a book. He's just
writing. He's participating in it. Sure.
Participating. He's writing a chapter. This book is going to have 25 chapters. 6 of these chapters are going to be written by our retired scientists. 4 of them are physicists. Okay, one is a professor of neuroscience, and the other one is a professor of psychology. These 6 chapters are going to be on the science of consciousness and how consciousness can begin to give you clues as to why all of what we're calling the paranormal contact modalities are interrelated. They're not separate. Now, what we refer to as the contact modalities, these are the different ways that humans are piercing the veil and having contact with non-human intelligence. For example, UFO-related contact, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, channeling, communications with ghosts and spirits, okay? Individuals that undergone hallucinogenic journees via ayahuasca or mushrooms, okay? Et cetera, et cetera. All of these types of modalities where humans are having contact with non-human intelligence, they're all interrelated from our perspective. It's our hypotheses. And it's a hypothesis that's shared by many, many individuals in their respective fields. Like, for example, we've spoken with several individuals that are leading academics on near-death experiences. They believe that NDEs, out-of-body experiences, and the ones that do know about UFO contact experiences, that they're all interrelated. For example, Dr. Kenneth Ring, an emeritus professor of psychology at the University of Connecticut, he's one of the top 3 academics that have researched near-death experiences for over 30 years. Okay, he wrote a book approximately 18 years ago titled The Omega Project, and in that book, that book entailed a statistical comparative analysis of roughly 100 individuals that had UFO-related contact experiences with 100 individuals that had near-death experiences. And we borrowed many of his articles on the transformational aspects, which he investigated. And he also did a comparison of these two phenomena. He believes that both of them are interrelated. We have individuals, I won't give you all the names, but many individuals involved in paranormal research. These are both academics, these are parapsychologists, some ufologists, not many, that believe that all of these different phenomenon are interrelated. So these 6 academics are writing articles. 4 of them are going to be physics-based articles. Okay, we have 3 PhD physicists in our organization, and then 2 of these other articles are going to be more philosophical approaches to consciousness and contact, and then 1 article will be a synthesis of both. That we need both a physics-based approach and a theoretical philosophical approach.
Okay, and earlier you had mentioned 2 people who are going to come out.
No. These are individual. What I was referring to was the topic of medical healings. There are 2 well-known individuals that have publicly spoken about their medical healings. One is an ordained minister, Reverend Michael Carter, and he has written two books on his experiences. And he's a full-time minister. He has a congregation in Asheville, North Carolina. And he had a medical healing by a very tall, human-looking being. He had been released from a hospital with a blood clot. He had been treated at the hospital for an entire week. And when he got home, one leg was still twice the size as the other because of the blood clot. It had cut off circulation in a major artery. So he had been home. He was in a lot of pain. So he started praying for, our universal creator to help him alleviate the pain. And then a few minutes later, this tall human-looking being appeared. He was conscious. He wasn't dreaming. This is all real. What a lot of people describe as Palladian types. These are with long, whitish hair, bluish eyes, very muscular, 8 feet tall. He opened his hand, and an orb appeared, a blue orb. That orb then went into his body, and then a couple of minutes later, when he looked down, I think he was knocked out. I'm not sure of the specifics, but when he looked down, his leg was normal, and he didn't have any pain. And numerous individuals. There's this other individual who was a retired DEA federal agent. There's this other academic professor who's not out of the closet. There's this other individual, Chris Bledsoe, who's publicly talked about his experience. He had Crohn's disease, which is pretty much an irreversible disease where your intestines get inflated so large that you have difficult eating, lots of pain in your intestines, tons of pain. And he was living off disability. He was collecting a disability check. So one time there was an experience that was witnessed by 5 individuals, 5 grown men, where these ships appeared, these beings appeared, and he was gone for about 6 hours, totally disappeared. When he had returned, he had missing time. He thought he was gone for a few minutes, 10 minutes or so, and all of a sudden he didn't have any pain in his intestines, and he went to his physician several days later because he had no pain. They checked him out, sent him to a specialist. They did x-rays and other type of procedures on him, so it's fully documented. and his Crohn's disease completely disappeared. And we've literally have hundreds of these types of cases. This other lady with skin cancer, that's also fully documented, and she's public. Her name is Lauren Kurth. Tons of cases. It's just, these are not things that are publicly discussed. So in this chapter,
when these people come forward, and they share things with you, do they share their medical records at all to say, look, here, this really did happen to me?
Well, when in our survey, we didn't ask for specific medical records, but when we do follow up with these individuals, they'll be presenting our medical records. We asked them whether they have it, and all of them said they did. Okay. So, for example, with my dog, we've got the medical records that he was taking a diuretic, he was taking Viagra for his heart. We brought him in a few days after she was healed, because she was taking these, Viagra for her heart. She was taking diuretics to flush out the excess liquids in her body. And so we didn't want her now to get sick, because she's taking this medicine that was not necessary. And he was totally shocked. He said, what happened to her? And we told him we changed the diet. So we do have those medical records. And many of these other people have their own medical records as well. So,
well, I think that would be interesting if that is included in the book, because the book is, about the science of contact. I don't know if there's a segment for that,
correct,
a section for that, but that would be really interesting. I think that would be much more convincing than just taking people's word, especially for the skeptics.
Well, one aspect in terms of these contact experiences that you need to be aware of, and many of your members, is that the vast majority of these experiences have had witnesses. For example, we've had over 2,000 individuals that have seen UFOs. 63% of these cases have been multi-witness events. Okay, for again the almost 2,000 individuals that have had direct physical contact with non-human intelligence, almost 70% of these cases they've had a friend or a family member that has witnessed these experiences. So, like for example, with my wife and I, it was two different people. Well, when we saw that craft outside the house, it was 5 people that saw these things. It was 3 adults, my daughter, and myself. So another factor, hopefully we can talk about it later on, but a lot of people don't understand that these beings might be millions and millions of years so far ahead of us, okay? They are literally inside your mind, knowing every one of your thoughts. They can control your thoughts.
Wait, I'm sorry, they're inside our minds.
Most definitely. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, this you will hear if you really talk to hundreds of experiencers, and you get the information from our research study like we did. You will get numerous of these examples of very close contact experiences. Let me give you an example from in my case. Okay. And this is just an illustration of the hundreds and hundreds of responses that we've gotten that were equally similar. Okay, in our living room, right, my wife and I walked down the stairs because she had wanted me to see this object, this being that was in our living room, okay? So then when we got down the stairs, she was like several steps ahead of me. She was in front of me. And then all of a sudden, she wasn't there anymore with our dog. And instantaneously, I had like tunnel vision. It's like you're looking at a periscope. Okay, you could only see, in that little round circle. I only had that, and all of a sudden, I turned to the corner of our living room, and that's where I saw that floating plasma being. I couldn't see anything else on the periphery. Okay, that's not normal. All right. The next thing, what I'm going to tell you, is absolutely not normal at all. Okay, I looked at this floating plasma thing. I didn't know it was a being at that time, and then I stared at it, and then I waved my hand at it, and in my head I said, bullshit, this is what she got me up for this junk, and then I turned around, I walked up the stairs, totally not caring at all, or totally forgetting that my wife had disappeared in front of me, and the dog, what I had seen. Okay. I walked up the stairs, I went to bed, put my hands on my chest, and I was immediately put to sleep. Okay. 45 minutes later, when I woke up, I was now fully conscious. Okay. Instantaneously, it was like, what the hell? And then I ran down the stairs. Okay. After that experience, for months, I said to myself, why did I act that way? Why did I act that way? That wasn't rational. It wasn't logical. I'm a deeply rational person. Okay. Well, why did I act that way? It wasn't until 6 months later that a second major experience happened to me. That was the one with that UFO craft. Okay. Mm-hmm. With that experience of that craft, it was literally right on top of my next door neighbor's house. Okay. 5 feet from the roof. Okay. It was huge. And then there was mind control that took place during this whole time period. Okay. I'm not going to give you all the specifics of what took place. I'll just give you the last thing that took place so you can get an illustration of this thing of mind control that I told you. Okay. They basically told my friends to leave after watching this for 10 minutes. Okay. They had told me basically to get my daughter, come and see this. Okay. I had communicated some thoughts to the craft. They immediately changed their apparitions because the light patterns they had initially, my friends, when they saw this thing, they were just questioning, trying to come up with explanations of what they were watching. Okay. And then in my head, after they were for a minute coming up with explanations of what they were seeing, then I tell in my mind, I said to them, you better come up with something better than this, because my friends still don't believe, who you are. They're trying to, explain you away. Then all of a sudden, the light patterns changed to thousands and thousands of stars that were blinking on and off twice a second. And then some of them in quadrants. They would take their turns in quadrant areas to power up and power down. And they were each of the stars were 10 times the size of Venus, blinking rapidly. And then they would be powering up to maybe 1/4 the size of the moon, and then powering down. So now no one had doubt what the hell this was. This was not human. Okay. And so that was just one example. The other example was how they got me to finally leave. My friends had already left. And then the way they got me to leave was that all of a sudden I felt that I was being bitten by hundreds of mosquitoes. This was August in 2013 in Miami. So it was very hot and humid. It was about 10 o'clock in the evening. And then after a minute of being eaten up by these mosquitoes, I grabbed my daughter's hand and I said, come on, sweetheart, let's go inside. These mosquitoes are killing me. So we go inside and we see my wife, and I'm telling my wife what had happened. And I told her that we had to go inside because these mosquitoes were eating me up. And then my daughter said, Daddy, there were no mosquitoes outside. And it was like a hypnotist, snapped his finger and said, okay, kid, wake up. And then the person that's hypnotized wakes up. It was just like that. When my daughter said, Daddy, there were no mosquitoes outside, it was like, boom. I woke up out of my hypnotic trance. And then I said, oh, my God. Then I realized what had happened. I ran downstairs. I grabbed my video camera. I grabbed a photo camera. I ran outside, and that took less than a minute. And and then I looked. Nothing was there. Okay, so they put into my mind that I was being attacked by these mosquitoes when in actuality it never existed. Okay, and then in my mind they told me to go inside. Okay, and then once inside, then they snapped me out of that trance, and then I realized what was happening. That you will hear with almost every type of close encounter experience. Okay?
Well, I'll say this one thing. Earlier, you said, okay, this part, this is not normal, or this part, this is not normal. I would say that none of this is normal.
No, but what I meant was that it wasn't rational, not that it was normal. That you thinking a certain way is not the way I would think. For example, bringing my daughter out there to see this huge, gigantic craft, she had just turned 10 years old. Okay? Would a rational father do that? No.
No, and that's a really scary thing. And we're coming up to the break, so I'll ask you about that. How do you feel about that? This idea that there's something else inside your mind can influence you and control your thoughts. I find that kind of terrifying. But we'll get your take on it when we get right back.
It's not terrifying at all. It's not terrifying at all.
Okay, we'll pick it up when we get back. Yeah. Ray, hold on right there. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest live.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Sign-ups and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free. You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
And welcome back to Paranormal Now. Tonight my guest is Rey Hernandez. And whether you're listening to this on the live broadcast or the podcast, this is going to be a thrilling conversation, to be sure. If you're just tuning in, Rey was telling us about a paranormal experience where one's mind is controlled by another intelligence. We'll get more into that. Taking us out of the break was White Flag by Dido. You can always follow us, Paranormal Now on Facebook. That's Paranormal Now Radio. And then on Instagram, it's at Paranormal Now. And Rey, before we pick up, where would you like people to go to find out more about yourself and F.R.E.E.?
The free organization, the website is experiencer.org. That's EXPERIENCER.org, and make sure that you get on our mailing list. The mailing list is on the bottom.
Go ahead. On the bottom.
It's on the bottom of our website.
Okay, and what about Facebook?
Well, we have a Facebook site for experiencers to communicate and chat with each other. And you could just type in free experiencer, but the main site is our website, because that's the science side of our work.
Okay,
and
great.
FREE is a 501c3 academic research institute. We're not really here to to focus on telling experiencer stories. We're here to undertake academic research that's never been undertaken before, and hopefully
Right.
we'll get a major time later on to talk about that.
And we'll talk. Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about that coming up. But let's continue where we left off. You said before we left that it's not terrifying. Can you to have your mind influenced or controlled by another intelligence? How is that not terrifying?
Well, a lot of people, once they see a huge craft like that, immediately our lives are fear driven. Correct or not? Okay. You see a being that's not a human looking being right next to you. Immediately fear kicks in.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that. I
Okay.
think fear is in all
vast
aspects of our life.
majority, the vast majority of individuals, actually 85% in our survey, have stated that their contact experiences with non-human intelligent beings have been positive. That's 85%. Now, does the internet portray that information? No. We asked them a question: do you want your contact experiences to stop? 84% said no. We asked them, do you believe that non-human intelligent beings are bad or malevolent? 91% said no. Okay. We also asked them, how did these contact experiences with these non-human intelligent beings change your life? And we gave them various options. Okay. 4.3% said it was highly negative effect on changing their life. 6.7% said it was slightly negative effect. 16.5% said it was neutral. 21.7% said it was slightly positive, but a whopping 51% said it was highly positive effect in changing their life. Okay. We also asked individuals that have had what are called abduction type of cases, whether individuals that have been taken and relocated to another place. Okay. We asked them, how would you categorize your experience? Okay. And we had 5 different questions. Okay. Let me start with the most negative kind. 8.3% said it was a case of abduction of the most negative kind. 13.5% says it was a case of abduction, but a milder kind, a slightly more caring kind. 8.6%, it was still a case of abduction, but we're seeking permission, more humane, compassionate treatment. Now, this is where the stuff that the social media does not even discuss at all. 35.1% said you are not an abductee, but a contactee, where you are being treated with respect and understanding. And another 34.4% said it's a case of being a conscious contactee, an egalitarian, an equal relationship. Okay, so I could go on and on with these types of similar responses. But the
last response.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this: the last response I think is telling, in terms of egalitarian, because I was going to ask you, even if it's a positive experience, can you not argue that it's unethical to just come into someone's mind?
Though you would be in that category of the 8%. That sort of might see it as highly negative. Okay.
Well, I'm not saying it was a negative experience, but just unethical.
Why unethical?
Because I'm not. It's like my home.
You're being taught lessons of spirituality. You're being brought to other dimensions, right? You're being told not to pollute your planet. You're being told that the nuclear proliferation of our planet might lead to your destruction. Okay, on and on and on. We're told that we need to be more loving of each other. Okay, we ask these questions. How many were you taught things of these specific beings? And then we ask specific questions. Okay, all these things that I'm telling you, I could go on and discuss those specifics later on. For example, 1,600 individuals have received telepathic messages. Okay, of these, 1,010 have been downloads of advanced science, physics, and technology. Okay, out of these, 60% were these types of communications. 68% were personally relevant information related to the person. 51% pertained to spiritual issues. 51% pertained to metaphysical or spirituality. 35% were scientific and technical in nature. Okay, 45% concerned human behavior. Okay, you see where I'm getting at? So if you take it from the perspective that all of a sudden these beings are interfering with me, I have my own free will. Okay, these are the people that answered these responses in a negative way, because these are people who are saying, look, who are these entities that come into my life? Here I am going to the local soccer match, or I'm going to go to a pub and drink with my buddies, and all of a sudden they're giving me a download. They should be interfering like that. They have to give me my permission. Before they take me to another location, I need to give permission. Well, those people are in the extreme minority perspective. The vast majority do not view their experiences that way.
Yeah, I guess one way to look at it would be, I could invite you into my home, or I could come home and you have let yourself in or broken in. They
didn't break in, they didn't let in. The vast majority of people are saying the total opposite of that presentation.
It was like an invitation, or
most of the people now are inviting them. After their initial experience.
How does that feel? Like when they're coming into your mind, what is that? I'm from what you're saying, it sounds like it's not forceful. That's not what I'm saying either. But is it like?
Well, let me tell you, for example. Okay. My wife was praying for quote unquote angelic intervention. Okay. You could see this as an angel. She sees them as angels. Okay. They came. They cured our dog, which was like our first daughter. We were going to be putting her to sleep, putting her to death. Okay. They brought her back to life. Okay. That's one example. Okay.
Oh yeah, now, and I think that's what I was thinking about in terms of there's only really one exception where humans allow this in our shared experience, and that would be the divine. It's we speak of the divine, and that behavior is okay. So is there something divine about these guys? Are they not quite material in the sense that we think of them?
Well, the vast majority of these beings, again, the internet is full with so much trash. And let me get back to this very, very important point, and that I want you to understand and the listeners to understand. No one has ever undertaken a comprehensive academic study of UFO-related contact experiencers. If you know of any, let me know.
I do. You know of any?
Our work is the very first. Okay? So therefore, anyone that has pre-conclusions about what is really going on, they're totally clueless. Because
I did notice that the MUFON seems to be, I don't know if they're following in your footsteps, but it seems to be that they're collecting data now in your footsteps.
Well, what happened was that roughly 2.5 years later, after we launched our study, MUFON launched. It's not similar, okay? It's focused on abductions. That's one thing. Our study found out that the abduction type of scenarios, where people are being taken against their will, are only 1/3 of the cases, okay? 2/3 of the cases are individuals that have seen UFOs and have had contact with non-human intelligence, but they have no abduction scenarios whatsoever. Okay, so the MUFON case is focusing on that abduction scenario. Then these are only people that go to MUFON. Okay, many people will not go to MUFON for many reasons, which I will not discuss publicly. Okay. So again, it's a very self-selective type of data that you're getting there. Also, the type of questions that are asked in that survey are not anywhere near, in terms of the volume of the questions we asked. We asked almost 600 questions, okay? And plus, we're asking 70 open-ended questions on that. So it's comparing apples and oranges, two totally different scenarios. But basically, ours is the first study that has this data that we can then publicly state. For example, did you know that the number one type of being that people are seeing is the energy being? Okay.
And how does one describe the energy being?
The energy is described in many different ways. Some people describe like a humanoid type of being, but filled of pure energy with radiance. Other people describe it multiple different ways, okay? But we did have many different categories, okay? We had the tall grays, the small grays, a human-looking type of being, no matter what size it is. We had the insectoid, we had the reptilians, we had tall animal type of being, small animal type of being. We had the spirit form that looks like a ghost or a spirit. Let me see what else. We had like the orb type of entity, but the number one type of non-human intelligence that people saw was an energy being, and that was described in multiple different ways. That was at 55%. Okay, the number two type of being that people are describing was the human-looking being. Okay, that was at 52%.
Okay, Ray, if you don't mind,
Ray,
let me ask,
yes.
because
Yes.
like you said, the internet is full of trash, and so I don't always know what is the trash and what isn't. According to you,
the trash is no one has ever done this type of study before. So if anyone's thrown, for example, there's a website here on Facebook that talks about reptilians, okay? The evil reptilians or something like that. And one guy says they're all evil, they're all negative, all of these experiences like that. And so I posted in there, I said, look, this is a pie chart of the 534 people that had experiences with reptilians that shows that 22.5% described their experience as negative. And then I said, in phase 3, the ones that described their experiences with the reptilians, the vast majority said that these reptilians did not do anything negative to them. It's just that it scared the living daylights out of them, because these reptilian beings are like 8 feet tall. They're like 300 pounds. They look like football players. They're ugly as all hell. You know, they look like a crocodile right next to you. And it's, you know, that you'd be, you know, pissing in your pants, you know, seeing these things, okay? So that's why, the main reason why they describe that experience as negative. Not that that being did anything negative to them, but yet no one knows these things because no one's done this study before, but we have.
well, since you've done the study, I really do have to wonder, because often when people report human entities that they see that are alien entities, they're mostly Nordic or white in description, Caucasian, light hair, and I just think that is that odd or
no,
okay.
We've had all different types of shades and colors. We've had these beings described as Asiatic. We have a couple of them describe them as like African American. Okay, so
and does that matter? But who's reporting it? I mean, you know, is it, you know, white people? Do they report white aliens or?
We have this white man, okay, from Latin America, okay, who's married to a white woman. All his kids are all white. Most of his social friends, I know this guy, are white, okay? He's had an experience with this black, you know, being that appeared to him, very tall.
So what does that tell us about this alien race? I mean, do they all these varieties come from the same planet, or you know, like we do?
You know, that's one hypothesis that are out there, that there are literally thousands of different types of beings interacting with us, okay? Another theory that is out there is that many of these entities might not be different entities. It might just be one type of being that's holographically projecting what we're looking at. Okay. For example, a lot of people in their interactions, they're seeing owls that are like 6 feet tall. They're seeing these deers, you know, little tiny deers. All of a sudden, a little gray comes out of it. Okay. So it's these morphings of visions of what they're seeing changes into something else. Okay. There are hundreds of these types of cases. So at this point, our research study is just at an infant stage. I mean, we've launched this 4 years ago. We've been collecting the data for about 4 years. But in terms of the in-depth analysis, the in-depth interviews with these individuals, we haven't done these in-depth interviews as of now because we're just finishing the phase 3 of our study. We're doing basically the quantitative and the qualitative aspect of our research. So we are going to be undertaking additional research as we move forward, but we're still in the infant stages.
And I feel like someone else has something that they feel like they need to share in the background there.
Yes, you want me to stop for a second and tell him to shut up a little bit?
Well, it's going to be live on the air, so that's your call. But
we have guests that came, and apparently their boy is playing with the dog. So I did tell my wife to shut them up a little while ago, so we'll see.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well, we don't have to get too harsh, and I'm sure you won't be. So the book, I think when it comes out, my guess is, because I know the amount of time and work that you've personally put into creating awareness about F.R.E.E., and I know all the people that are participating in this book, you will all collectively help to get it out into the public domain. And so anyway, I'm saying that I think it will sell, and I think because of that, I think that you will get a spotlight, and I think you will come under intense scrutiny, some fairly and some who are just debunkers right off the bat. So I hope that indeed the book really is ironclad, as scientific as possible.
Well, you have to understand, these things you cannot put into a test tube. Okay?
Well, it's like psychology, and you do have people on board that can help you with that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not parapsychology where you get an individual, you put him in some type of a screening device, and then you undertake different types of tarot cards experiments to see if there's telepathy going on. This type of phenomenon cannot be undertaken at that level. It has to be based upon witness testimony, and then there's certain cases that are multiple witness cases, which are much stronger than others. Also, a person's background. We've had many academics that we know are experiencers, medical doctors, okay, physicists. Half of our board members are experiencers, except they're not public about it. And I already told you, we've got 7 retired PhD academics as formal members of F.R.E.E., and many individuals that are associates of F.R.E.E., but they're not out in the open because they're still academic professors. Okay, and because of this fear and ridicule, so it is a valid phenomenon. But as I said before, these are not things that you can quote unquote study this scientifically in a materialist way. Okay, when we're talking about consciousness, okay, let me use that as a topic discussion. Okay, there's the debate in terms of what is consciousness. You have one camp, there's the whole materialist side, that consciousness starts and ends in the brain. Okay, and then you have all this new research that's saying that, look, consciousness does not start in the end of the brain. It's non-local. It's much more complicated than that. This type of arena, you just can't put in a little laboratory in a test tube and be able to research, okay? But you do that, the ontology of that research is done through the experiencer. Like, for example, you get all these people that are having all these near-death experiences, these out-of-body experiences, the remote viewers. That type of testimony is collaborative information that, there is consciousness outside of your body. And so that's the type of work that we're doing. Now, in terms of our book is going to be a paradigm-changing book. And we're going to be having very few people that are actually going to understand it. Because, first of all, we're going to be arguing that this perspective, this phenomenon, via the lens of consciousness. Okay, which is not the lens that most of the paranormal people look at it, the ufologist people, the NDE people, etc., etc. We're also going to be approaching this through the topic of the contact modalities, that all of these modalities of contact with non-human intelligence should not be studied separately and individually, but they should be studied as one phenomenon that's interrelated. Okay, again, not a lot of people are going to understand that. Okay. Thirdly, the actual data results, the data findings that we have gathered, run counter to what is all the bullshit that's circulating in the internet. Okay? Why? Because no one has done this type of academic research study before. Okay? This is a team of numerous retired PhD academics that developed a research methodology. This is not just some Joe Schmo off of some trailer that's written 40 books on UFOs, that's doing this. These are retired academic professors that have had a whole history of developing academic research methodology. We have a PhD statistician, okay, who is a professor of statistical analysis that's working with us. His name is Dr. Russell Scalpone. He has statistically validated our research data. One way he did that was that he compared the research findings by geographic area. He compared Europe, he compared Latin America, he compared the United States, the entire North America. He broke out the folks from the UK, the folks from Australia, and what he found was that in all of these different geographic areas, the data remained consistent. Okay, the people said that it was positive. This 85% was consistent throughout all of these geographic areas. Okay, one reason for that was that the way we advertised this, the responses for people to take the survey, we advertised it in over 110 different radio shows. Okay, you name the radio show, a member of our free board was on that radio show multiple times, advertising people to take our survey. We sent it out to all of the MUFON directors, all of the state directors, also all of the STAR team, all of the organizations that are working on the paranormal, all the research that are out there that we can get emails on, all of the ufologists, all of the near-death experiences, all of the out-of-body organizations. And we got mailing lists from all of these different individuals. We had mailing lists that was over 6,000 names that we sent it out to. And then for over a 3-year period, we posted it on Facebook to over 500 Facebook sites. Every 2 weeks was posted.
Okay, so let me put it to you this way. I mean, you did touch on that. The book, if I am a sociologist or a psychologist, I often have to deal with data that is not repeatable. It's reported experiences within a society or in a person's subjective life.
Yes.
So there is a science to studying, things that are not repeatable. So my question is, if a sociologist or psychologist looks at your work, are they going to say they did the best with what they had to work with?
Okay, let me respond to that. One of the members that developed our research methodology, Dr. John Climo, he taught at the university level qualitative methodology. Okay? How do we interview people in groups? He's never had so many individuals to work with as in our research study. Most of has been the chairperson for over 200 PhD dissertations. 75 of those have been on some aspect of the paranormal. Okay, he's one of the few PhDs that are out there that their specialty is the paranormal. Okay, most of the people in the paranormal field do not know very little about the academic work on the paranormal. Some do, vast majority don't. Okay, so they might not know of Dr. Climo's work in his field. But if you ask anyone that's an academic level that has written any type of article associated to the paranormal, they know Dr. Climo very well. Okay, now he taught, as I said, qualitative research methodology for over 40 years. Okay, we also have a PhD statistician who's also a psychologist who worked for over 40 years. Okay, for major Fortune 500 companies, mainly medical institutions. He was the one that supervised all these statistical research for these major medical studies. For example, when they first tested out Viagra, let's use that as an example, okay? They literally had thousands of people that they had tested it on, okay? He would gather all that data. he developed a whole methodology of how to test that and gathered all that data and then did all the statistical analysis based upon that data. He did this for major medical institutions, and he also taught at major universities as well. Okay, so we've got both the quantitative side addressed at the highest academic level and the qualitative side of our research at the highest academic level. So if anyone tries to criticize our research methodology, these people have no understanding of academic research.
So if they try to come at you with a gotcha question, let's just say
Well,
some
hey,
show,
we'll throw an atom bomb on there because we've got heavy, a ton of academics, retired academics that developed the research methodology and that are on our board of directors.
Right, because I was thinking. I mean,
this is not Linda Moulton Howe doing a book on experiencers. Okay, this is
right,
not Richard Dolan who's writing the history of contact. Okay,
well,
we're talking
I'm gonna ask you,
retired scientists.
Right, let's hold it right there. I'm gonna ask you when we get back to about what you think about the lay person who investigates and documents and researches these odd phenomena. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on the Inception Radio Network. And our guest is Rey Hernandez of F.R.E.E.
Forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Longtime listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
And get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N. And never miss a great show again. Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
And welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith on the Inception Radio Network. Taking us out of the break was Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me by U2. And my guest tonight is Rey Hernandez. Rey, I wanted to pick up where we left off. If you can tell me what you think about lay researchers who, even the most well-intended, but don't have a scientific background or not paranormal academics like you had mentioned before.
Well, what they'll be getting, let's say, for example, let's take it David Jacobs. Okay, he interviewed 15 people for his last book. His last book that hybrids are taking all over the world. Okay, he didn't even interview them. He put them under hypnotic regression. Okay, so these are people that came to him. This is no random selection here whatsoever. These are people came to him. Most of the people that go to him know that he views all these entities as primarily negative and evil. Okay? So if you're going to go to David Jacobs, you already have this perspective that these entities are negative and evil. On top of that, almost all of these people that go to him, he hypnotically regresses them. Okay? Who knows if these people are, are very suggestive. Okay, whether he asks leading questions or not, these things are not put out to the public. The hypnotic regressions of these individuals. Okay, and so he then, after these 15 people, he's hypnotically regressed. He comes out with a book. These hybrids are taking over the world. Okay, now compare that to what we're doing with F.R.E.E. Okay, we specifically asked in our surveys. We only want responses that are based off conscious, explicit memory. Okay? Not memories from hypnotic regression, not memories from lucid dreams, or any of these other types of sources. Okay? It has to be memories based upon conscious, explicit memory. Also, we did not just wait till, go to people in your neighborhood, or people in your location, or people that you met at a UFO conference to try to interview them and for you to do your little research. Okay? Again, there are numerous problems with that methodology. Okay? Because you're being self-selective and being very myopic in terms of where you're going and you're getting your sample pool for this type of research. Okay? What you could say is that this particular experience happened to Joe X. This other particular experience happened to Mary Z. Okay? But you cannot make any type of comprehensive analysis of what's going on in the field. Okay? Because in order to be able to do that, you have to do the approach that we took in our F.R.E.E. experiencer research study. So I would encourage people to do these types of investigations. But again, you're just documenting what's happened to these specific individuals. Okay, and then again, you have to know what questions to ask, because there have been in the past a limited amount of research on abductees. Okay, that have been published, but these are basically studies that were less than 50 questions, and most of these questions focused only on abductees. So the questions that were asked were questions that are circulating in the internet. Did they probe you? Did they put an implant in you? Did they, do an anal probe on you? Et cetera, et cetera. Did they extract semen from you? Did they cut up your ovaries and take your, ovum out? These are the type of questions that historically were asked in this field. Okay, we asked those type of questions, obviously, but we asked an additional 500 additional questions that are not normally associated with this, with the abduction scenario, because we knew from the people involved in our board of directors, people that have been working with experiencers for over 30 years, that this phenomenon is so much more complicated than just the abduction scenario. So we included those type of abduction-related questions that were about 100 of these type of questions, but we included an additional 500 questions that went far and beyond that type of scenario.
And
so
we'll get into some of those questions moving on. But Rey, I do want to ask you still, how is this a spiritual experience for you?
For everyone, it's totally different. Okay? For everyone, it's totally different. For many individuals, for example, I'll give you an example of one of my best friends here in Miami. Okay? His name is Alberto. Okay? Albert in English. Okay? He's a retired federal DEA agent. Okay, he helped to bring down Noriega when he was with the DEA. Okay, he has a master's degree. He was a mid-level DEA agent. Okay, he retired in 1986. Okay, from the DEA. He's now in his 70s. Okay, his wife is a PhD psychologist. His daughter is a PhD psychologist. Both of them are also experiencers. Okay. Alberto had many, many experiences, many, but let me just give you the experiences that were spirituality oriented. Okay. He was actually shown what the death process is like. Okay. He was shown a near death experience without dying. Okay. He was taken through the tunnel. Okay. He was shown the light at the end of the tunnel. Throughout this whole process, they were telling him what is happening. Okay. What is he seeing? What he's going to see. Okay. He told me in detail, that particular experience. He then said that they told him that, look, you have to go into the light and through the light. You don't want to look back and stay back. Okay, there are a lot of people that are these paranormal investigators that are ghost hunters, whatever you might want to call them. Okay, a lot of mediums, a lot of channelers, a lot of people that have had contact also with non-human intelligence. They were told that when you die, the spirit, the soul, whatever you might want to call it, goes into some other type of dimension. But the people that are clinging and wanting to stay back in 3D reality, then a lot of them get stuck here, as ghosts, as entities, as spirits. Okay, so what this entity in his experience told him, basically, look, don't look back. Don't want to stay back. Okay, go through the light and go where you're supposed to go. Okay, and another type of experience was that they shown him, okay, that we are all components of a universal mind. Okay, this is a separate experience. That when we die, that our soul or spirit becomes, we go right back to source.
Well, how is that a separate experience? Shouldn't that be connected somehow? Or
no, separate in terms of different days.
Okay, got it.
Okay, but it's similar to this whole aspect that you asked me about spirituality. Okay, so but yet he's seen a small gray. He's seen numerous types of human-looking type of beings. Okay, he's seen a whole boatload of UFOs. One time with over 50 people, very up close when they were doing CE5 in Peru in 1988. So this is way before Stephen Greer. There's this man called Sixto Paz, who founded this group called Grupo Rama, who began doing, what it is now called CE5 group, CE5 contact work. They were doing this since the late 70s. And so he's had numerous experiences where he will go with these Latin American CE5 individuals since the late 80s, and they've had numerous types of contact with ships and also beings in these types of interactions. And this is fully well documented in the Latin American literature. It just hasn't come into the U.S., because of the language differences. He even showed me pictures of very up close UFOs, of gigantic orbs, newspapers. It was taken by a newspaper writers and the cameramen for the newspapers when they were in Latin America several times. So the point that I'm getting at is that he's just one little example of so many different individuals that have had a whole range of experiences, not only involving close contact with different types of entities. They've been taken aboard a ship. They've been taken to other dimensions, other realities. They've been taught things. They were given lessons by these beings. And one of those lessons are one or more lessons on spirituality. And I just threw out an example to you. So it's that's why a lot of these people, when it was time for answer that question, they checked off that spirituality box, because a lot of them have had these types of spiritual lessons. But again, the internet only focuses on fear. Okay, fear, 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 and these ugly grays. They put all these pictures of these ugly grays, so when you go to the internet, you think all the experiences are associated with grays, but in fact, the grays are actually number 3 type of beings that are seen by people, and in fact, the experiences are not negative. 85% of almost 4,000 people that took our survey describe these experiences as positive. And we're not just focusing on just the English language survey. The statistics that I'm rattling off to you came from the English language survey. In Spanish, we have almost 650 people that have taken our surveys. In German, 350 people as well. And we're just getting the surveys launched in Chinese. Okay. So, and also Slovak and in French. And again, universally, the vast majorities of the individuals state their experiences have been very positive in whatever language you're talking about.
Well, I will say that if I have to have a pin or a T-shirt, I would much rather a gray than a reptilian. That's just a personal preference, and I think that people do have fun with the subject. I think that can go both ways. It could be it could lessen the seriousness of it, but it could also, I think it can encourage people to be more engaged in the subject, which is also good. And just like anything in life, I think there's a playful side to something and a serious side, I think it's okay if people walk around with a Grays T-shirts and go to conventions, if they are also taking the subject seriously and looking to find the best resources they can in their respective subjects that they are interested in.
Well, at this point, there aren't too many resources when you're dealing with contact with non-human intelligence. Okay, it's never been done before. So a lot of these researchers, and I could name 4 or 5 right off the top, but I don't want to get into specific personalities here. These are people who hear of an experiencer through a third party. They then, many of them are actual researchers, like you said, lay researchers out in the field. They'll call in the Molten How, oh, I researched this case of this person, blah, 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 blah. She'll then, oh, can I speak with this person? And then all of a sudden she takes that case, including all the data written by that person, and then does a whole, write-up, for one of her radio shows. Okay, so that's how these things are done. So what you're getting is it's a very limited perspective of what's going on at an individual basis. Okay, but in this comprehensive way, done in an academically neutral way, neutral format of collecting that data, no one has ever done this before.
Right, and there's no denying the importance of that. But you can't deny that if it weren't for decades of people writing about these experiences, whether it's subjective, a collection of witness experiences put together in a book, etc., then F.R.E.E. may not even have the reach that it has now, because so many people are actually interested in the subject and listening to programs like this.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. John Mack, he first started with his book Abductions. All of the people in that book were people that were sent to him by Bud Hopkins. And Bud Hopkins saw this phenomenon as purely negative, purely negative. So when Dr. Mack first started in this, okay, he had this approach that these people are having these types of negative experiences. That's why he turned his book Abductions, okay, even though he did go into some of the more in-depth aspects of their experiences. Now, with his second book, Passport to the Cosmos, that he wrote, I think it was like 6 or 7 years later, then he had his own group of individuals that had gone to him that weren't filtered by Bud Hopkins. And in that book, he only wrote out, I think it was like maybe 15 individuals. He mentioned 15 individuals. But his book was, I think it was 10 case studies of individuals. So it wasn't a lot of people, okay? But at least he was able to write the description of these 10 cases, okay? And he knew at that point that this phenomenon is not just an abduction phenomenon. It's way, way more complicated than that. He knew that many of these people were seeing these experiences as positive, as transformative. He even in his books mentioned an awakening, a transformation. But unfortunately, he could not, he did not live long enough to be able to do what we're doing in F.R.E.E. And he always longed for that. because after he died, he had it was this group established called PEER, excuse me, which is this cross-disciplinary type of research on this phenomenon. And it survived for several years after he passed away. But we're actually implementing his vision. And without Dr. Mack, F.R.E.E. would not exist, because F.R.E.E. was actually one of the members of that peer group. Dennis Briefer in our board of directors was one of the members in that peer group. Rudy was actually the individual that taught Dr. Mack about consciousness and the multidimensional nature of our reality, and why some of these entities might be multidimensional entities that might come here from another dimension, why they might be using holographic projections. So we're actually implementing a lot of those early visions that Dr. John Mack had.
What have your studies shown about potential holographic projections?
Well, we haven't gotten into those type of questions. Those types of scenarios would come about in the in-depth interviews. This information came via the phase 3, when people were asked to write out the details of their experiences, and also talking to hundreds of experiencers myself, that many of these interactions involve changing of material from one object to another. For example, many times an orb would go right through a wall and appear in the living room. Out of the orb, a little being might come out, or a human-looking being might come out. Then this being might just disappear right in front of you, dematerialized. Okay, so we know that these types of changes in the material essence of what people are looking at are happening. Okay, no one can understand it, obviously, because we don't even understand quantum physics. How we're going to be able to understand this being right in front of you just totally dematerializing right in front of you, or an orb going through a wall, and all of a sudden, out of an orb materializes some this being. Are these holographic projections? Are they real? These are all numerous questions that anybody that's in the internet that thinks they have an answer, they're totally snake oil salesmen. In fact, F.R.E.E., the position of F.R.E.E. is that no one knows what the hell's going on. No one has an idea of what's going on. In essence, we have data that individuals that have told us but to be able to explain what's going on and reasoning behind some of these things, no one has that. We're just in the infant stages of research.
Infant stages of research. Even after decades of other people researching, I guess you feel like you need to start from scratch and build from there.
What have they researched?
Well, like John Mack, Bud Hopkins.
Well, what did he research? He just documented 15 case studies.
Sure, but that's research in itself. I mean, he didn't do surveys like you did, but...
He never worked with more than 200 individuals. Okay? In, I believe, 15 years of working with experiencers, he never worked with more than 200 individuals. Okay?
Sure, but it doesn't take away from the importance of his work.
No, I'm not taking away from the importance of his work. What I'm saying is, what information do we have from his work? What his work presented was basically questions. If you listen to his lectures, okay, his lectures do not come up with conclusions. His lectures are basically questions. These are things that need to be pursued.
Well, are you able to separate your own subjective experience from the study you've done at F.R.E.E.? I mean, to say that you, because it sounds to me like you think that what's happening tends to be leaning towards a more positive spiritual experience.
No, the data is pointing to that. The data is pointing to that. We had to take our surveys for over 2 years before we even publicize the data. Okay? The questions that we asked, for example, how did you describe your experience, for example, with that short gray? Was it positive, negative, or neutral? And I could go into, the how the people answered that response with the different type of beings. So you'll tell me whether these questions are leading or not. We asked them, was the experience mainly negative? Was it slightly negative? Was it neutral? Was it slightly positive or was it mainly positive? Okay, these are not leading questions. These are just check off on the box. Okay, also the way that we publicize to attract the experiencer, as I said before, this was a worldwide project that went on for many, many years in a neutral way, trying to get individuals. Okay, and let me give you the data. Okay, the energy being, 55% of the individuals saw energy beings. 6.7% said that they were mainly negative. The human looking beings was 52%. Only 5.2% said it was mainly negative. The small grays, 50% of the people had interactions with small grays. Well, guess what? Only 11.5% that these experiences were mainly negative. The ghosts and spirits, spirit forms, 47%. 7.4% said they were mainly negative. The tall grays, 34% of the individuals said they've had experiences with tall grays. 12.5% said it was mainly negative. Okay, the reptilians, the evil, dreaded reptilians. Okay, 25% had experiences, encounters with reptilians. Well, guess what? Only 22.5% said they were mainly negative. The mantid beings, the insectoid beings, 21% had experiences with insectoids. 9.5%. It was mainly negative. The tall animal beings, we left it, very open. Okay, like for example, Sasquatch could fall into that category. So the tall animal type of beings, 13%.
In that kind of category, is there a notation where they can add something else in addition?
Yes,
a descriptive
correct.
word. Okay.
Correct. There was a box if they wanted to describe, okay? But also in phase 3, when they're asking, describing the details of the experience, they were asked to write out the type of being, describe it as much as you can. So that's in phase 3. So the tall beings were seen by 13%, and only 9.6% was mainly negative. The small animal being, again, we just use small animal being, is 14%, and it was 5.8%, so it was mainly negative. So as you can see, these are not leading questions. Rey Hernandez had absolutely zero influence in how these people answered this question. Okay, this was only derived from the 4,000 experiencer that were asking these questions, and in English, this was based off of this data. I think we had at that point where we got this data from was 3,200 individuals in the English language. So this is a lot of people.
And how did you actually get in touch or start to work with Dr. Edgar Mitchell initially on this project?
Well, Edgar Mitchell heard about the experience that I had, and Rudy called him up and talked to him. Both of them were working very closely for several years on this advanced theory of physics called the quantum hologram theory of consciousness in physics. Have you ever heard of the book The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, that book was basically, it's a synthesis of a theory that was jointly developed by David Bohm, who was one of the leading theoretical physicists of the 20th century, and a contemporary and colleague of Albert Einstein at Princeton in the early 1950s. The other collaborator was Carl Primum, who was probably the world's leading neuroscientist. He was a professor at Stanford University and also at Yale. So these are not in little rinky-dink community colleges here. That work was then amplified by numerous PhD physicists. One of them is Sir Roger Penrose. I don't know if you've heard his name before. Okay.
I have, yeah.
Okay, yeah. The name Sir will tell you that the high level of this guy is taken into regard. There's only two Sirs in physics, and that's Sir Stephen Hawking and Sir Roger Penrose. So he basically is an adherent to David Bohm's theory, which was then later on subsequently modified a little bit to the quantum hologram theory of consciousness. So Edgar and Rudy had been working for Edgar at least for 20 years on modifying this theory with numerous physicists around the world, but mainly several physicists at Stanford University, Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff, Bernard Heisch, and Rudy was one of these individuals. So Rudy told Edgar about this, and Edgar invited me to his house. and that's how I became associated with Edgar.
Okay. And Edgar, unfortunately, who's not with us anymore, what was his hope before he passed away? What was his hope for F.R.E.E.?
Well, he clearly understood the need for a comprehensive academic research study of the experiencer. You know, he had a lot of people don't know, he had been speaking with numerous experiencers for many, many years, except he never publicly talked about it because the field of experiencer research is still a taboo subject. Okay. You ask anyone in parapsychology, they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. You ask Dean Radin, any of the ESP researchers, they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. You'll ask the folks at Rhine, they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. The Monroe Institute, the University of Virginia, the Division of Perceptual Studies, they won't touch this with a 10-foot pole. Okay, the Institute for Noetic Sciences that Edgar started, okay, IONS, they will not touch the whole field of UFO contact with a 10-foot pole.
Well, there doesn't seem to be much investment opportunities in 10-foot poles then.
None whatsoever, okay? So Edgar knew that this was a taboo field, so he never publicly discussed that. But he had been talking with, hundreds of experiencers, and I know many of them that were very close friends of Edgar. So he always had this interest that we need to take this research and take it seriously, just like we studied, advanced physics, just like the quantum hologram theory was taken seriously by numerous PhD physicists all around the world and was amplified. Okay, and Edgar was a part of that. He wanted to do the same thing with the contact field, and so he knew that this study was of utmost importance, and he actually participated up until his death in our research study. He was one of the people that guided the development of this research study, would give us feedback. I would go to his house, like every month or every other month, depending, and go over all the details of what we're doing in F.R.E.E. He participated in our board of directors and our
Okay, Ray,
calls.
let's hold it right there. We'll pick it up when we come back for the last segment of the show for this episode. The information just keeps flying in. Ray's got plenty to share, and I know that there's more that you've been dying to share that I've been holding you back from. So this last part here, let's get everything in that we can. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on the Inception Radio Network. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
My mind is on an island, but here I've been on the wrong coast for 8 long years.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now on the Inception Radio Network. My guest is Rey Hernandez, the probably most prominent representative and co-founder of F.R.E.E., the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. If you've not yet heard of them, they are doing what many consider to be very important work in the field of ufology and paranormal as far as studies go. Hopefully, indeed, this is groundbreaking. According to Rey Hernandez, it already is groundbreaking. And if you like the song coming out of the break, Rock After Rock by Jenny Lark, you can always find out more about Jenny's music at jennylark.com. She is a local here in New York City and someone I've had the opportunity to work and perform with as well. So Rey, I know that you have so much more information that you wanted to share. So right now, in this last portion of the show, what is the most important thing that you want to get out right now before we forget?
Okay. Thank you, because most of the time when people are interviewed, they have to respond to a question, and they could never relay, what they believe is really important. But let me just clarify. The name of our organization was changed. It's the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Experiences. Okay, we included extraordinary because it deals with all of the paranormal aspects of these experiences. They're not encounters, they're experiences. Okay, in terms of FREE, our organization, we are an academic research institute. We are a 501c3 academic research institute comprised of 7 PhD academics. Most of them are retired academics. We also have 5 lay researchers, but this is not just in person. These are people that have been working with experiencers, almost all of them, for over 30 years. We have Kathleen Martin, who is the director of MUFON's Experiencer Research Study. She wrote the book on Benny and Barney Hill. She's written 3 books with Stan Friedman. Okay, she's worked with experiencers for over 30 years. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, she's written over 75 books on different paranormal topic areas. So I'm sure you know who she is. Okay, she has written has been in this field investigating the paranormal for over 30 years and has interviewed hundreds and hundreds of experiencers of different types of paranormal experiences. Mary Rodwell, again, in this field for close to 30 years. She has worked with over 3,000 experiencers. So that's just 3 of the 5 people in our group that are on our board of directors. In terms of the PhDs, Edgar was a PhD from MIT. Okay, was trained as a aeronautical engineer and as a physicist. Dr. Rudy Shields is an emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University. We also have Dr. Claude Swanson. Dr. Swanson got his PhD in physics from Princeton. Again, these are not, community colleges here that we're talking about. Dr. Bob Davis, he was a professor for over 35 years in neuroscience at the State University of New York. Okay, these are tenured professors we're talking about. The other one is Dr. John Klimo, who I talked about earlier, and he was a tenured professor for over 40 years in psychology. And as I said, he chaired over 200 PhD dissertations. 75 of them have been on the paranormal, and he's written 3 books on different paranormal topic areas, and over 50 articles, academic articles, mostly on the paranormal type of topic areas. He's not a parapsychologist, even though he's done a little bit of that. So this is an academic, okay? We also have Dr. Russell Scalpone, who has a PhD in psychology, and his specialty is statistics, the quantitative aspect of it. We also have close to 10 other PhDs that are advisors to FREE, but because of the nature of their work, they cannot come out publicly to say that, look, I'm on their board of directors, for example. There's a couple that are very well-known names. Okay, so I want people to understand this is not just a Mickey Mouse organization. This is at the highest level of academia is doing this work. The other
I'm sorry, Ray, but just ask this one thing. How did everybody coordinate in order to come up with the surveys that you came up with?
Well, it took a whole year to do it.
Mm-hmm.
A whole year.
I mean, did people,
every 2 weeks.
Just like, okay.
Meeting every 2 weeks. Flushing things out, coming out with possible questions, okay? How to publicize this. This is a whole year developing the research methodology.
Okay, so this isn't just, I'm going to send in my email and make some comments here and there. I mean, this was an ongoing, consistent process.
This is an academic research study developed by academics in an academic format, which usually takes, many years to develop and many years to implement. And our data, we're halfway through our data analysis, and it's already been 4 years. So you see where I'm getting at? This is not. This is a very sophisticated process. Now, the other thing I want the audience members to understand is that F.R.E.E. is not a ufology organization. Okay, we have zero interest in the nuts and bolts approach of ufology, which almost every member of our board believes has given us almost very little over the last 70 years. Really, what has the 70 years of ufology given us? Okay. That's our perspective. That's not for you to give me a response. I'm just saying that's the position of our board. Okay.
Right. No, I hear you. But are you speaking in terms of the experiencer research or in terms of eyewitness reports? Because I think the work as far as eyewitness reports go and FOIA documents has been pretty good.
The field of ufology. And I don't want to take up a lot of time talking about that. Okay. What our mission, what our focus is, we want to explore what is the true nature of our reality. That's the essence of who we are. What is consciousness? Okay? And our position is that by examining the role and impact of one's reported experiences via non-human intelligence, via the contact modalities, NDE experiencers, OBE experiencers, all the different types of contact experiencers, by understanding and researching these experiencers and what they go through, that will give you the kernels, the nuggets, okay? The understanding of what is consciousness, okay? Because up until now, consciousness has been researched, from a metaphysical perspective, from a philosophical perspective, from a physics perspective, from a materialist perspective that involves the brain, et cetera, et cetera. So our approach in our organization is that the experiencer of all these different contact modalities is the key to be able to begin to understand what is consciousness. And that is the true mission of our organization. We're an organization that is researching consciousness. Now, the reason why we undertook the UFO related research was because it was never done before. We had no basis, no data, no statistics, no true academic understanding of what is happening with the UFO contact experiencer. Okay. Later on, but we do have a lot of information about near-death experiences. Why? Because there have been tons of scientific studies conducted by medical doctors, by medical researchers in the field of near-death experiences. Okay. The out-of-body experience, that's another area that we have very limited research data on. Okay. So eventually we want to be able to do research in out-of-body experiences, continue the research into near-death experiences, and ask questions that are more related to the topic areas that we're focused in, okay? And then eventually, down the road, many years later, we want to be able to undertake comparative research analysis among the thousands of individual experiencers among these contact modalities. Okay, so
it seems to me then
it's a radical idea, a radical concept, and that's why I'm saying a lot of people, once they read our book, they're not going to really understand what we're doing. Okay, because it's so much on the fringe. It's a paradigm establishing phenomenon that not that many people are going to be truly understanding what we're doing.
So studying the experiencer is a path towards understanding consciousness.
Correct. And let me give you an example. Okay, you have individuals in all of these three different modalities. They're having contact with non-human intelligence. Many of these individuals are taken to another reality. Okay, for example, in both the UFO contact experiences, the out-of-body experiences, and the NDE experiences, individuals are taken to these matrix type of realities. Okay, so sort of like the picture of the Matrix, okay, where they're in there and they're living this experience like it's very, very real. They're encountering other beings, non-human intelligent beings that are interacting with them, teaching them things, showing them things, okay. They're seeing other realities, okay. And so this is one of the many, many commonalities among these three different types of experiences. So if we're getting this experience as one of the major commonalities that these three experiences have, what does that then tell you about consciousness? The other factor is space and time, okay? All of these three phenomenon have a component that time doesn't not exist. For example, my own father had a near-death experience. And he came back and he told me, look, I was up there in heaven for 20 to 30 years. I said, what do you mean 20 or 30 years? He says he was shown all the good things that and the bad things he had done in his life. In the literature, it's called a life review. Okay? He told me that life review lasted 20 to 30 years. Okay? This is a common theme of many people that have had UFO contact experiences that are taken to other realities. They mention that time does not exist. That they could have been in this location weeks. Okay? And that experience lasted weeks. But then, they were brought back and it's 2 hours later. Same thing with a near-death experience. Many of the near-death experiencers state that in that experience, time does not exist.
Do they mean that time doesn't exist in our conception of it? Because if I understand quantum physics...
Our conception of it.
Okay. Because it is considered a part of the actual makeup of the universe. Isn't time and space considered...
Einstein said that time, in essence, I mean, to bluntly paraphrase what he says, is that time-space is one reality. But in actuality, time does not exist. Okay? So in theory, you can go back in time. Okay? And then there's debate whether you can go forward in time. Numerous PhD physicists from Berkeley, from Stanford, from Caltech, from MIT, from Harvard, at the highest, Cambridge, at the highest levels, mentioned that there is the possibility of going back in time. Okay? There's lectures on YouTube by numerous physicists that talk about that concept. Okay? So what we're getting at is that these experiencers are giving little nuggets, little kernels about our cosmology, about our reality, about consciousness. Okay? That the soul, that consciousness is non-local. It's independent of the brain. Okay? And that consciousness might live outside of our physical body. Okay? And these are just examples that I'm getting at in terms of once we're able to do these cross-comparative type of studies of the various experiencers of these contact modalities, it would then give us additional information of what is the true nature of our reality. So that's one very important component that I want people to understand of what our organization is doing. A lot of people might think that we're doing this questionnaire and UFO contact, that we're a ufology organization. No. We have zero interest in going out into a field with a Geiger counter if someone has talked about, they saw a UFO land on their backyard. That's we have zero interest in that,
So there's questionnaires. Are they separate for someone who has a UFO experience, an alien experience, out-of-body experience, or is this all one encompassing questionnaire?
If you let me go into the data, I'll give you some interesting information. It's one questionnaire that's focused on individuals that have seen a UFO and have had some type of contact with a non-human intelligence. Okay, that's what the target is here. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, what we found out was that basically reinforces our hypotheses that all of these contact experiences, the contact modalities, are not separate, but are actually interrelated. Okay? Let me go into some of the specifics here. 80% of these individuals have had an out-of-body experience. Okay? 80%. Mm-hmm. Okay? Roughly 95% have had one or more type of paranormal experiences. And we had different boxes that they could check off. Most of these people have had multiple types of paranormal experiences, like bookshelves flying off, lights, in their home, orbs, seeing orbs, interacting with orbs, etc., etc. Let me go into some of these. 67% have had a past life memory. Okay? 46% have had a near-death experience. 47% have seen what is called commonly in the literature shadow people, shadow beings. Okay, we've had near-death experiences. Okay, 37% have had a near-death experience. 47% have met and conversed with a deceased person. Okay, 49% have seen their body out in space, leaving planet Earth.
I'm sorry, you said 39 or 49?
49%. Okay. 45% have memories of visiting what is called the spirit world. 45%. Okay. 66% have seen an orb inside their home, not in a picture, but physically seen an orb. Then we even asked them to describe the color orb. Okay. 46% have seen an orb go through a wall or an object, a physical object. Okay. So, and 60% have repeatedly experienced objects moving in their house without any logical explanation. Okay. As I said to you before, 51% of these individuals have had a medical healing, okay, by non-human intelligence. Okay. This is just an example of the paranormal experiences that people are having. So in essence, people are not having one type of paranormal experience, okay? These individuals in our sample group, the ones that have had UFO-related contact, are having a whole cornucopia of paranormal experiences. Now, when you compare that with people that have had NDEs, very similar statistics, okay, from the very small statistics that have been done. Okay, that's why we want to get into this type of a research with near-death experiences. Okay, but a lot of what I'm telling you is anecdotal type of information. We have a lady in our research committee who wrote her PhD dissertation on near-death experiences. Okay, we have several members in this research committee that have had near-death experiences, and they go on a yearly basis to the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And as a matter of fact, I'm being paid to fly out to Boston to give a lecture to the International Association of Near-Death Studies to talk about the relationship between near-death experiences and UFO-related contact experiences. Okay.
You know, Ray, I've actually have to say I have a lot of respect for you for just coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm getting paid to do this," because most people try to tiptoe around that. But still, I mean that's
the hotel. I'm paying for the hotel.
Right,
my room and board. I'm paying for the room and board.
Okay. Because it did sound like you were saying you're they're giving you some money.
Rey Hernandez is losing money on this.
Okay, that's a lot different. That's a lot different. Yeah.
Rey Hernandez is losing money on this. One thing is getting $375 for your airfare to be paid. The other one is for 3 days to pay for room and board.
Okay, well, I'm glad we clarified that then. Okay, good.
Okay, we were invited, Dr. Bob Davis and I, to give a lecture at Yale University, okay, at the annual conference of the Society for Scientific Exploration. Okay, we were asked to pay for our registration. We were asked to pay for our room and board for 3 days. Okay, this is a tremendous opportunity to talk among academics that are focusing on
This is a fantastic opportunity. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. At Yale University. We had to decline. You know why? You know how expensive it is for me to fly up there, okay, to New Haven, Connecticut, for me to pay for a hotel for 3 days in New Haven, Connecticut, okay, for me to pay for the actual registration of that conference for 3 days, which is close to $400. Okay, you see where I'm getting at?
Have you had any fundraising campaigns specifically for those sort of opportunities, where you can say after you've raised some money, you can post online. Okay, here's the list. This is where I'm speaking. This is where your money's going. That might help you out.
Oh, almost zero funding for this. We have been self-funding the things that we're doing. Okay, I have put in thousands of dollars of my own money. Okay, we have to pay, for example, SurveyMonkey every year, $300 for each of the 3 SurveyMonkeys, because we're keeping the separate languages separate. Okay, every year it costs money to keep Free operating and going. The members of Free are funding this. We get contributions of $20, $15 here and there, that type of thing. But we've had a couple of meetings with some of the major donors that paid millions of dollars to Stephen Greer for his projects and his movies. Stephen Bassett, that paid him, a lot of money for his work, and these people have been burnt. By
I think that you guys, you should not miss out on the opportunity for yourself to do public fundraising if you feel like you can prove to the people this is how your money is spent and do it responsibly. I think that there's so many different ways to fundraise on social media and online.
Yeah, well, we need volunteers, someone that knows how to do, a fundraising campaign to put, for example, I work full time. I work 8 hours a day, okay, 5 days a week. Most of these other individuals, these retired professors, are retired academics. They have their own lives. They're doing the work with Free, as like a hobby on the side. Okay, no one's being paid for this.
Well, look, you have the airtime now. I mean, do you want people to try to contact you and help you?
We need volunteers. For example, I would love to do a Kickstarter fundraising campaign, someone that knows how to do that, someone that has video editing type of skills. For example, I'm going to be going up to Boston when I go up there to the International Near-Death Studies, and I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Rudy Shields to pick his brain. This is an extensive interview. If someone could do like a little, a 1 hour documentary on Dr. Rudy Shields, on his work with Dr. John Mack, on his theory that black holes are actually the source of the Akashic records. Okay, I mean, I could go on and on. His work with Free, these are things that I want to preserve. So we need tons of volunteers. The problem is that we just don't have these people.
Yeah. Well, if where do you want people to contact you if they can?
Our email is info@experiencer.org.
Okay, and I will say, info. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Info@experiencer.org. That is our email.
info@experiencer.org. Got it. Okay. So yeah, if anybody's listening and you want to help out Free and Rey, you know how to get in touch with him. But I will say, in defense of videographers out there, because I've been down this road myself, I've done work in videography thinking it was going to be simple, and it turns out to be a lot more complicated. So if you are looking for someone to volunteer as a videographer, I will tell you, depending on the format, it can be a lot of work, even if it seems simple on the surface. But that's for you and whomever else to discuss when that time comes.
I would love if we could get a 15-minute video that we could put on Kickstarter describing what we're doing at Free. It would have direct excerpts of Dr. Rudy Shields, several of our other academic professors involved in Free, Mary Rodwell, for example, myself, just talking about the academic research that we're doing and trying to solicit some monies. One of the categories that we need money for is that we're going to be launching this book. And we need to then pay for these copies, up front, and we just don't have that money. I mean, Rey Hernandez would have to be paying a few $100. Rudy Shields would have to be paying a few $100. Dr. Bob Davis, et cetera, et cetera. So if we can have a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or something like that, a little 15-minute video that would help launch that would really help.
Okay, so Rey, the next few minutes are all yours before the show is over. So what do you have to share that you feel like you really need to get out there?
Okay. Free is going to be finishing a book that's going to be totally paradigm transformational in the fields of the paranormal, parapsychology, and ufology. Okay. This book is going to be close to 800 pages. Okay, 800 pages in length. It's going to be the results of our Free experiencer research study. Some of the names that that are in here. Have you ever heard of the name of Brad Steiger?
Sure have, yeah.
Okay, he's writing the conclusion to this book. Okay, we have 6 of our academic professors are going to be writing articles. These are more, it's all meant for the lay person, but these 6 theoretical pieces are going to be focusing on what is the relationship between consciousness and contact. Okay, so there's going to be 6 articles, again, heavy-duty articles. Some people might be a little bit uncomfortable with, but it's very important to talk about this theoretical piece. Okay. Then we're going to be having 2 of our free academic research articles in the book. One is a synthesis of phase 1 and phase 2. The other one is phase 3. And then let me go through the different topic areas. Brent Rains, who's been in this field for over 30 years, he's going to be talking about the history of UFO contact paradigms. Okay. Mary Rodwell is going to be talking about the paradigm shift, embracing the universe. It's no longer about UFOs, but human consciousness. Are we being assisted by human intelligence to evolve into a new multi-dimensional species? That's Mary's. My article is going to be talking about the terms abductee or contactee. Okay, what is really going on? What does our data tell us about this phenomenon? Kathleen Martin is going to be talking about the messages that experiencers have received by non-human intelligence. She's going to be talking about the historical literature. What has that literature talked about messages from non-human intelligence, from ET, whatever, aliens, whatever you might want to call them, and also what does our research studies say? Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright is going to be talking about the transformation that's taking place of the experiencer. And again, these are based upon 80 questions that we asked of how this person has changed. Reverend Michael Carter is going to be talking about the spiritual transformation of the contact experiencer and analysis of the free data. Dr. John Klimo and Susan Manowich are going to be talking about scientific information downloads received by contact experiencers. Okay, they're going to be talking about what the data has revealed. Dr. Joseph Brooks and Preston Dennett are going to be talking about medical healings reported by the contact experiencers. Miguel Mendoca, who's written several books on experiencers, who also has who worked for 10 years for the United Nations doing environmental work, he's going to be talking about the ecological message received for humanity that's been reported by the ET contact experiencers. So he's going to be focusing on the ecological messages.
Okay, Ray, we're gonna have to cut it off here. Thank you for spending the time and explaining as much as you could within the short amount of time. I know that you guys have covered a lot of work, and I hope that we can get you back on sometime in the future and pick up where we left off. And when that book gets published, hopefully you'll get some more attention. And if anyone out there is listening, wants to support and help Ray in his work with F.R.E.E., you know how to get in touch with him. You could also go to experiencer.org and contact him through there. And I just want to ask you real quick. You said it's the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial